one important component of Christian cultural heritage is the heritage component. And so this week we're going to be looking at that a little bit. And so over this week and a little bit into next week, we'll be looking at Christian history. Now, instead of just doing a overview of Christian history from the apostolic period to the present, I've instead thematically grouped a couple of different lectures related to some what I think are important topics in contemporary Christianity. The first is the question of where do denominations come from? A very important question today, as we see in the United States, but in the world, large numbers of different denominational groups, all vying for attention, all vying for adherence. And so where did they all come from? Well, we don't get too much in depth, but I want to give you an idea of how there are certain trends in Christianity that have led to our cultural moment now where we have such a proliferation of Christian denominations. The second topic has to do with the nature of Jesus. And so we do a survey from, again, the apostolic period to the present, how people have differently interpreted who Jesus is and what his nature is. Now, what do I mean by nature? What I mean is, how is Jesus both God and human? And so there have been various theories about this. And one of the things we'll talk about at the end of that particular section is whether or not such a question is important. Does it really matter how Jesus is God and human? And so that'll be an important question. The third section for this week has to do with the question of worship. And so we'll take a brief survey of important trends in worship from the beginnings to the present. We certainly won't cover everything, and we'll tend to focus on change rather than continuity. What I mean by that is there are a lot of things that have stayed pretty similar since the very first time people started to worship together as Christians. We'll be focusing more on how have some of those things changed from the past to the present, and ask the question at the end of this section of whether or not such changes are necessarily good, or are they bad, or does it depend on what kind of changes are being made. So that's what we'll look at this week, and then carry over into the next week a fourth section about some of the changes that have taken place over Christian history related to some important topics in contemporary society.